Everybody should be wired up, ready to go.
That's what I believe.
We'll move on to our peace officers report. Can I get a motion on that? Councillor Gilroy.
Okay, that council received the Senior Peace Officers July 2020 report for information.
Okay.
Good evening, Council. Just a couple highlights, then I'll answer any questions. Still issuing unsightly notices. Had to send contractors to 2 properties to be cleaned up. Issued 1 ticket for a graffiti artist in town. Curfew bylaw, issued a couple warnings, 4 warnings for the skate park. They're just over the 10 o'clock quiet time, so I just asked politely to go home. And the Public Works have asked Mr. Dente to get his workers to install the new speed signs or time signs for the school zones. So that should be completed by the time or whenever school is opened. Is it? I heard it was.
No.
I heard it was.
HPE begins their transition Monday. The kids go to school for 2 days next week to learn all things how to do it, like procedures and masking and all the rest, as of 31st.
And I had already 1 warning for chickens.
Yeah, I got that.
They had 20 chicks, but they were that day they were being removed from town to their farm. But anyway, got a complaint, went and investigated, and they had 20. But other than that, any questions?
Councillor Stenhouse.
So yeah, my one question was on the hand warning. So that is rectified, all 20 chicks are gone?
Yeah. They indicated that they might bring 2 or 3 back once they had a chicken coop built, but they weren't. They were told how to go about the application and stuff. So.
My next one was on the 3 liquor cannabis related infractions. Can you break that down into which is cannabis and which is liquor?
These 3 were all liquor.
Okay.
Cannabis hasn't really been an issue as of late. Knock on wood, but yeah, these are all liquor related.
Touch wood.
Yeah, touch wood.
And my next question is the provincial offense totals come to $7,284. Does that money come back to the town?
A percentage? Not the whole thing. There is a breakdown. I don't have it with me right now, but it's in my office. The government takes their 40% right off the top, and then there's victim surcharge, victim services, or victim victim whatever. They get 15%, and then we get, or the town gets, I believe, 60% of that remaining. Don't quote me on that, but I'll bring the breakdown next meeting.
Sure.
And
That'd be good.
okay.
Great, thank you. That's it.
Councillor Gilroy.
A couple questions. First one has to do with the very last item you put on there, 25 hours for breaking and entering, and thieves, and that's increasing. Too much cake.
No, that's community issues. I just added the beanie. It's progressing. It doesn't mean that I've spent that many hours on beanies and stuff. It's just an issue community-wide.
What kind of increase have you been noticing? Say over the last 6 months, a 20% increase, 30%?
I'd say it's probably close to 20, 25, yeah.
Is there any particular type as well?
It's more or less vehicle, being like it's opportunity,
Okay.
looking for cash, something that's easily sold. But yeah,
So for the people watching this, you would suggest that
Lock your
they
vehicles.
make sure nothing is valuable or seen to be valuable in their vehicle, and the vehicle's locked at all times?
yes.
Another question I had, at the very beginning, 4 dogs at large ticket, 0 return to owner, and 0 dogs surrendered.
These would have been county. I include the county bylaw stuff too, just for.
Okay.
But the town, last month, I think we only had 1 dog. Other than that, it's been fairly quiet in town.
Yeah, no, I guess it was confusing for me because I would think of the fact that if you're giving a ticket for a dog, you'd be returning the dog to the owner and then giving them the ticket at the same time, as opposed to, it just a little confused that way that one came out.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you had any complaints as well about when you said unsightly warnings, people saying, well, the town has spots themselves, and okay, so they haven't been defending themselves that way?
No.
Okay.
All right, I had just a couple of questions that I didn't see. Have we had any applications for bees or hens? Any come in?
Not that I'm aware of. No,
No.
nothing.
Okay, no, I was just curious after getting that done, but. Well, yeah, it wasn't early, but not for hens. They could have had hens. Bees might have been a little late, but. Okay, no, I was just curious if we had any of those at all. And the other one I was just wondering about is camping in J.C. Park. Do we close the gates to J.C. Park at a certain time, or can people drive in there at any time and set up their camper? Or is there? I'm not even sure if there's signs there.
There are signs
Okay.
for picnic only,
Oh, okay.
no camping. But I noticed there was a ball tournament last weekend, and there was 1 camper in there, but.
No, I was just wondering about that one. Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a motion to receive for information. All of those in favor? It's carried. Moving on to our Public Works report.
We should go back to public delegations. We didn't do that.
Oh, geez, thank you, good catch. Yeah, so, yeah, we'll move back. Oh, boy, all of that cake, I got so excited. Okay, any public delegations? Yeah, okay, now, let's move on then. But good catch.
Add it to your report then.
Yeah.
Whatever he was gonna say.
Okay, can I get a motion for the Public Works report? Councillor Stenhouse?
That council received the August 2020 Public Works report as presented for information.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn it over to you, Vern.
As council can see, we've been doing some paving, some overlaying with our own forces. We can do a block for about $10,000. So we've been hitting some of the streets that are really bad to try to extend the life expectancy of these streets. The rest is basically steady as we go. The tender for 47th Street closed today. We have some questions we want answered before we can bring it back to council. We'll do that on the first meeting. September.
How many bids did you get?
3.
What do the prices look like?
Good. That's as far as I'm going to go.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering compared to
Because
what
we need to verify that one company is bidding the contract properly. So before we can bring those forward, and I'll
Alright.
open it up to questions.
Sure. Councillor Long, then Councillor Stenhouse.
We've been talking about the issues that we have with the county taking away the $400,000. And the discussions that were presented previously were things like increasing the water usage for the residents of Big Lakes County to recoup that $400,000 back. Have you been able to look at sort of the numbers briefly? And
We do sell the county about 100,000 cubic meters a year.
okay. So then, if we were to look at, because they took the money in one foul swoop, we need to recover the cost of fixing and maintaining the water plant itself. So if we were to look at an increase to recoup that back for this year coming up, what would the increases have to be per cubic meter?
Being that we wouldn't be able to increase it for this year,
Right.
because of the notification process.
Yeah.
But it would have to be between $4 and $5 a cubic meter.
$4 or $5 per cubic meter.
Yeah, increase to recover it 1 year.
Yes. So I hope all the residents hear that loud and clear from Big Lakes County. That'll be a significant increase, but it's something we need to recoup. We need that money. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that, Mr. Walker.
Councillor Stenhouse.
So I went through your list here, and about midway in your bullet, it says pushed new plastic gas into Sports Palace.
That's I don't have a secretary.
Pushed new plastic.
We pushed a brand new plastic line. We remember we had that issue there last year, and we were just going to replace the section that went around the corner of the building, but with some of the stuff that was installed in 1963 is no longer legal. It is because it's grandfathered and it's in the ground, but if you go to replace something, and we ended up having to go right back to the main of the street, and we pushed a line in across the parking lot, and then redid the service around the corner. So and we put a valve on it, so that we can shut down the arena now if there is a significant problem.
So,
Any lines that you're going to be replacing now, you're going to be replacing them with the plastic lines?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And we do, we have to put a conductor for cathodic protection, because some places it's just a bridge gap with plastic. So then you got a CAD weld to the steel on one side and CAD weld to the steel on the other, in order to keep that continuity going to protect the pipe.
Councillor Gilroy.
Actually, I just want to say that the job you did in front of the sports complex, the overlay done on those two sections, they're very nice. And you have to give you guys some credit for doing a very good job.
We have done sections like that before, and there are a couple of sections, and I will be discussing with Rod and Rita if we can go forward with doing a little bit more this year, because there are some streets that are failing badly. Another block to the north of those two, and then on the north side of the Sports Palace is failing quite badly. And actually, then one on the north side of the Sports Palace, 55th to the skate park is really bad. So if we can find some money, we'll look at doing that as well. I'll also have to caution council that I will be coming back in the future. We've had a few things. I remember council saying when we passed the budget that if I needed more money for unforeseen circumstances, to bring it back to you guys.
we were kidding.
Well, the slide at the reservoir wasn't. And up pushing the gas line, and we had to replace a cathodic bed that we weren't expecting. So I will be coming back if we can't fit it in the operational budget as is to request a bump up from reserves.
Did we say what year to come back?
Yeah. Okay.
Bert, are we putting fiber in? Are we asking for the tenders to quote with fiber to, in just in case we're able to get this fiber project?
We haven't been, because nobody's given me a plan to where to go.
Because I know we've been talking about it for a couple of
Yeah.
years, and I thought that was the answer. And
The way that the way it would be best is to just go in the boulevard, to be honest with you, because then if it ever has to be dug, you're not digging the street, right? To tap in and do a push in the boulevard, basically the same way that company came through High Prairie and went north to Peavine with the Roll Company. That's what I would suggest.
Okay, you're done?
Yeah.
Just a couple of things. One is, I've got a very nice handwritten letter, and so from Diane Oliver and Olga Johnson for their thanking Public Works for the good work that they did helping
Heart
with
River Cemetery?
the cemetery. They were very pleased, and please share with Mike Denty and staff our most sincere and genuine thank you. Perhaps we should say incredible, most sincere appreciation. So they really appreciated what you do and said you did a fabulous job there. So
Good, I'll pass it on.
yeah. And then I was just wondering, did you get a report to fix the slide in behind?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'll share a little story on that one because it's kind of funny, because I just pulled into my driveway and the two next door neighbor kids came over, and they're like 3 and 4 years old, and they come over and they go, Mr. Mayor, we went to the park, but I couldn't use the slide today. It was broken. Can you fix it? And it was pretty cute to see these little kids come over and ask. So I'm glad it's fixed. If I see them again, I'll tell them.
And we did have to trim a tree branch out of there on Monday morning too, from the weekend.
From the winds?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And the other question I had was, how is our water level right now? Is it?
We're about 2/3 full. We couldn't pump for a long time this year, but we're gaining. So if we keep getting a few rain showers here and there, we'll be fine.
And you had said there's something wrong with our reservoir?
The Outer Bank had a slide. If you go out by the north end of the reservoir, the Outer Bank had a slide, and it's probably the length of this council chambers. But we do have a report on how to fix it. We will be tackling that within the next week. It isn't structural. It's just topsoil that slid because of all the moisture. It's the first time in 40 years that it did it.
Okay. Councillor Gilroy?
Just one other question that you may want to think about is that I did see that some people are still having trouble with what to put in a recycling bin when they put trees in the broken glass one and they put trees in the paper. Is there a way of figuring out how much time we're spending it so we can actually charge that back on?
Well, we could
on
figure
our
out
recycling?
how much money we spent to remove the trees out of the thing. That's easy.
Well, no, like you're doing a lot of cleaning up here for people who are not thinking,
Yeah.
and it's unnecessary as far as I'm concerned that people would be so ignorant to put trees into recycling
Biggest
and
thing
stuff
is
like
you
that.
got to catch them, right?
But my point is that if it's costing us time, and we seem to be doing cost recovering a lot of things, is there a way of at least looking at how much time and money that we're spending to have to clean up what other people are being lazy about?
It's probably about 2 hours a week for one guy to go there and check things out and pull anything away from there, like say the trees and stuff like that. So you're looking $100 a week. That's a rough, just off the top of my head, guess.
All right, any?
Just one more question.
Oh, one last question.
Vern, we've had, there were some discussions on the, discussion groups on Facebook asking about the cost of recycling, or the recycled goods, and whether they're just being thrown in the dump afterwards. Because there used to be a market for it. And the market's slowly changing, right? And I know we've been taught that, we've been told that. And I know I reached out to Brian, and you weren't certain what happens with.
We didn't know what happened to him once.
Yeah, once Green
Once
Park
they hit
takes it.
Slave Lake.
Once they pick them up, I couldn't tell you. I can check into it, but
You know, I wouldn't mind the answer. So there has been people that have been asking too for a blue box program, like to like, be able to recycle at their
out of their
doorstep.
house, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I know that we went to recycling sessions at AUMA, and the market for the product
Yeah.
is changing.
Yeah.
And maybe we just need an education piece too for the community, because if they're going to ask, it would be nice that we can give them the information.
Okay, I'll check into that.
Thanks.
All right, thank you for that, Vern. I know you're up next, so you
again.
might as well sit there, but we'll vote on your report. All of those in favor of receiving for information, it's carried. Moving on to the next agenda item, the Prairie River Gas Co-op Agreement. Get a motion on this one? Councillor Long?
The council will adopt the River Gas Co-op Town of High Prairie Facilities Agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is something that we had an informal agreement on, some of the stuff in this, and the co-op actually approached us to formalize something with them, and it's unfortunate Councillor Courtley isn't here because he was part of this. I feel, and our staff feel, that it's a win-win situation for both parties. The co-op did pass this at their board meeting last Tuesday, and it allows us to work together, funding each other's programs that we say they're pulling 25% out of Heart River gas, so they're going to fund the operation of Heart River at 25%. Whereas before there was really no funding for capital upgrades or anything like that. That was our station, and they just bought gas out of there. It also allows us to tie into a line that is just 1.25 miles south of town that they purchased from Whitecap Energy to solidify our gas supply for years to come. It'll be our cost, but they'll help us facilitate using their easements across the properties that have to be crossed, and no charge to tie onto the line, which they own, which we could have a charge. They could charge us to tie onto that. And they were paying for part of the exchange station. They don't take much gas from the exchange station, which is just up by the north end of the Stampede grounds, and now they're going to pay 5% of that. It just formalizes what we've pretty much been doing all along. So I'll entertain questions.
Questions? Councillor Gilroy?
Actually, I'm surprised that Donna didn't get this first. She usually gets the spelling errors.
Oh, the meat?
But on I was just wondering if it should have been managers without the apostrophe as well. But managers shall meet to discuss.
I do have the improved version, but I didn't have that improved version the one that was passed by the co-op. They changed the me to meet in that one, and I do have that one on hand now. But this one I didn't have the time of the agenda going out. So I had to give you guys what I had on a read-only file. So.
Councillor Danaka?
Can you explain what 3.04 means? This agreement may be altered or amended in any of its provisions when any such changes are reduced to writing and signed by the parties hereto, but not otherwise.
That's if something changes within the system.
Yeah.
And say they move out of Heart River and go off of their line that comes to Coral, then they will apply to us to rewrite a revision of
Oh,
this
okay.
document.
Okay,
As-
Councillor Stena, oh, sorry.
It'll be just a working document as things change, and who knows, in the future, the town might sell their gas department, so, or the co-op might sell out, and then this has gotta be totally revisited again too. But rather than doing the whole document, just address the changes that need to be made. But it will always come back to council.
Councillor Stenhouse had a question.
So the font in the blue coloring, is that changes that have been made?
That's after the original one they sent to us. And then the blue is what, when we went over and met with them for the final time, those were the changes that they sent.
So
me
those
that
are
we
the-
were added. Yeah.
So those are all the changes that were added?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a question you talk about a win-win.
Yep.
And I understand the win part for the town is they're now contributing to some things that they might not have been, and the other win is being able to tie into a new gas line,
Yep.
which is great. What is their win in all of this?
In this, then, when they brush a line, it's not 100% of their cost. We'll take a percentage of the gas that we take off of that line, and we will pay for a percentage of the cost of the brushing. So that's a win for them. They win by continuing to pull out of Heart River Station until such time that they decide not to, because we own that station 100% of our building. Deodorant stuff is going to be split 75-25. So it really is a win-win situation. They're happy, we're happy as administration, and their board is happy. So they will, and again, utilizing our equipment at cost rather than an inflated cost if they have to call us out. Or if we call them back, we're only paying what they paid their person. So if it's overtime and they're getting $30 an hour, we'd be paying $45 an hour for that person if we need them. That situation doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it used to be $125 an hour. And we were only charging like 50.
So what do you expect will be the additional costs to our town for this? That must be their win. They're getting some additional.
But again, then they're paying 40 or 25% of some of the brushing that we get. So it may cost us $5,000 to $10,000 on some years. Again, in the document it says we need to meet to discuss any upcoming projects prior to it going to budget, and it will always be brought forward to the town during budget deliberations, anything that's going to be done.
Yeah, okay. And then the other thing, there's no end date in this, and
No, it's a living document. Again, it's a lot like the 10-year capital plan. Some things creep up, and then we need to discuss them, and then it's brought back to council for an amendment, and their board as well.
okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we had a motion to approve this agreement. All those in favor? It's carried.
Thank you very much.
Okay, can I get a motion on our August 11th public hearing minutes? Councilor Gilroy.
The council approved the minutes from the August 11th, 2020 public hearing as presented.
Anybody see any changes, alterations needed to those? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's carried. Moving on then to our August 11th regular meeting minutes. Councilor Rose.
The council approved the minutes from August 11th, 2020 regular meeting of council as presented.
Any changes on those? Seeing none, all those in favor? It's carried. Moving on then to International Day of Older Persons. Can I get a motion on that one? International Day for Brian, yeah. Councillor Long.
I don't know why I put my hand up because I felt guilty and maybe I feel old. I don't know. But now that I'm 60, and then I lost my page, had it, got it. That council proclaim October 1st, 2020 International Day of Older Persons and direct administration to advertise accordingly.
All right. Well, we also had another person on council that just had a birthday too, so I think she's creeping right into this also. Not mentioning any names.
Always be younger than a lot of you. Or a few.
All right, any comments, questions about this?
Yeah, I have a question.
So what's considered an older person?
Yeah.
What's the criteria?
I don't know. Do you have an answer to that?
Okay,
I would believe it'd be 65 and older.
okay.
Not necessarily. though.
Yeah, because some places find,
Some is 55.
55.
Phrases is 55, the drugstore is 60. So, I mean,
that's just out of curiosity, that's all.
Probably anyone with kids, they always feel older.
All right, I see no other questions, so we have a motion to adopt this. All in favor? It's carried. Moving. All right, okay, we're moving on to our addendum 8.2, which the appointment of the new CAO. And we have one mistake on the addendum, just
I don't know what happened.
to catch.
were you watching the Twilight Zone?
Twilight Zone.
That's the British
I don't know what I did.
So, yes, we know that the name is not Rod Sterling,
we
it's
know
Rod
that.
Riesling, right?
Yes.
All right, so would anybody like to make a motion on this one?
Almost got his hand up there.
Almost.
Yeah, I'll make it.
Okay,
The council officially appoint Rod Reisling as CAO for the town of High Prairie, effective as of August 26, 2020.
okay. Questions on this one? Comments? So as of, is it tomorrow? So you won't be able to sign anything as of tomorrow? Is that what happens?
Yeah.
As of you're done, okay.
So if we can ask questions, how are things going, Rod?
Just-
Oh, you got a question coming in?
No, just make sure that we notify municipal affairs of the change. Cause I know one time we didn't, and it was like 8 months after we notified.
Oh,
Make sure we send it to the right minister's office, since it just changed today.
yeah.
Grand Prairie MLA is now the municipal affairs. I forget what, 10 is somebody, whether from the.
Allard.
Is now the, she just put it there.
Yeah,
But,
just today.
or the municipal affairs from just moved to justice, and justice moved to economic recovery. And the other one goes back to county.
Oh, they're just like doing the Trudeau shuffle.
No,
What?
they haven't put them in the we yet.
So how's the first couple of days, Rod? You got it all
It's
down now?
fantastic. I can't thank the staff enough, and Brian, I'm sure, we were talking about actually prolonging this, but I think I'm starting to wear him out on questions, and so he pushed it up, but, no, absolutely fantastic, a great team, it's just a pleasure to be here so far, but yes, my head is full. But I know I've got Brian's number, and it'll be on speed dial as soon as he leaves, and he's promised to pop in once in a while and contribute his wisdom to future projects. So absolutely appreciate the town. Met several people already, and it's been a pleasure. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
And welcome.
Yes. Yeah, definitely welcome aboard, and so, yeah, that was my question, is that's the signing authority now goes over, and so there was those checks today, if you sign them, is your signature still good? So, okay, it was still, yeah, good, all right. Any other questions on this one? Seeing none, all those in favor? It is carried. And item 8.3, heliport project. Get a motion on that. Get a no?
I got a question.
Okay.
Should it, oh, never mind.
Okay, I'll grab it.
Okay.
That council appoint Councillor Stenhouse and another councillor to attend the heliport meeting as council representatives.
Okay.
So Judy wants on.
So what you're saying is,
Yeah.
I've had an issue with this ever since I got elected.
Does anybody have interest in being the other
Just a
person?
sec, we have a question here from Councillor Danaka.
We're already in August. September, October is our organizational meeting for the next, where we'll be assigning committees, et cetera, et cetera. So I see no point in doing this now until the organizational meeting for next, in October, where committees are assigned. We can decide that then, because I don't think anything's gonna happen between now and then.
Go ahead.
We received a call from Jordan Panasek, CEO of Big Lakes County, and he said that Jessica Stevenson wanted to call a meeting soon.
Oh, okay.
So Jordan is taking this same motion to their council tomorrow. They have a council meeting tomorrow to appoint 2 people also. So.
Okay.
And this is above the committee already that Councillor Rose sits on, and Councillor Gilroy is an alternate on already.
Well, there's 2 different health
Yes.
runs, yeah.
So
Councillor Gilroy?
I do believe that they will be meeting here within,
Oh, okay.
before the organizational meeting.
So the foundation has the funding for it too, right?
No, the foundation has the money to do some engineering on a helipad. That was what they have, yeah. Councillor Gilroy?
Okay, well, if, I was gonna put my name forward if others cannot attend, because I have been working with a lot of things toward the hospital and some of the needs of the hospital, and this would be one of them. So if, but I will acquiesce if somebody else wants a position. Otherwise, I will put my name forward for the second position.
Do you know when the meetings will be, Brian? Is it their day, evening?
Yes, when that lady calls.
AHS, it'll be daytime meetings,
Likely, yeah.
Yes. Yep.
But, okay.
probably. So, Councillor Stenhouse and Councillor Gilroy?
finish your motion. Or is it 1 minute? Is that okay with you?
Another councillor.
I said another counselor. So, I don't know how you.
Okay. Well, we
You
can,
amend your motion.
yeah, we can do a friendly amendment if everybody's all right with that.
Okay, I'll amend it.
That council appoint Councillor Stenhouse and Councillor Gilroy to attend the heliport meetings as council representatives.
Okay,
Like that, you can't take me for the word.
all right. All those in favor? In favor? Opposed?
Donna's opposed.
Quick opposed. In favor.
It was carried, yeah.
Yeah, in favor.
It was voted, well, I wasn't sure if both.
We sort of went made up at the same time for just before you hit the opposed. Quick on this.
All right, okay, so that is carried. Moving on then to our capital budget projects. Can I get a motion here for item 9.1? Councillor Rose.
The council direct administration to apply for MSI capital and the federal gas tax grants as follows. Project 201804 Lagoon Inlet upgrade, river outfall and weir upgrades, shortfall 396,918, and 2020 expenses of 14,943 to be funded by MSI Capital. Project number 20190110 water treatment plant filter rehabilitation to be funded by the federal gas tax of 302,282 and MSI Capital at 1,354,780.
Good job on a big motion there.
I waited, brother.
Yeah. I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Corporate Services to fill us in on this so you understand.
Okay. So basically.
Turn your mic on.
Oh.
I'm sure if it was on or not. There we go. I don't want to repeat what's already in the document, so I'm just going to highlight the fact that I've had a chance to really review the MSI grants that have been spent in the last 2019 more specifically. I didn't go too far back in 2018 because the SFEs, the Statement of Financial Expenditures, have matched what the auditors have. So I just started really reviewing the 2019, and there was quite a few projects. So that's the document that was attached to yours. At the back, the spreadsheet, which showed you the work that was completed, which is the first page, and the projects that are in progress, and the ones that were approved but have not been started. And then the last one is projects that the Sports Palace specifically project was completed in 2020. The funding was in place with Big Lakes, but because they pulled it, it's still pending. So we will be submitting the invoice to them for that one. And I'm sure it's going to be a topic of discussion at the mediation. So if there's any questions on the projects completed, you're welcome to ask. So based on that, I'm recommending that we get the money from the federal and provincial coffers instead of using what's unknown in reserves right now. We know we have money in reserve, but how much is committed for fire, how much is committed for your gas is still to be looked at and reviewed. And so because there was no commitment for the two projects that your motion has, the balance would have been funded by your reserves. It's just safer to get money where you know you have an option to. That's my opinion.
Okay, Councillor Gilroy.
I appreciate how you're working to get this solved. I was a bit confused the first time, and then it's because it's the motion I made. But I'd gone back to the one on October 8th, and part of the background, and I'm glad that Vern's here for this, was that the whole idea here was that this was already in the budget, an approved budget, and I don't remember us ever saying it was going to come out of reserves in the first place. I thought we had other funding, because we've been going with on the adage that we would not enter any projects that we did not have complete funding for. So I'm just a little confused here. I know that Mr. Martinson said we came under budget, which is awesome, but I'm trying to figure out how it ended up coming out of reserves when we had already set aside an approved budget in 2019 that was going to cover the motion in the first place. And I know it's hard for you to do it right now, but
Okay, I'm gonna ask you just to clarify, your motion from October 8th was for the water treatment plant? Or for the lagoon?
It was for the water treatment plant.
Okay.
We awarded, it was the council awarded the capital upgrade of the water treatment plant to AGS Mechanical at the cost of $1,657,061.83 plus GST and including engineering. But I was looking at the background part of it as well, and it had already suggested it was going to be covered by an approved budget already, and that's where I was confused.
Okay, so when I looked at the grants, or the capital project for the 2019 water treatment plant, that I can pull the document that I'm referring to, which is on the computer, but according to Terry's document, the water treatment plant was funded by reserves, not by MSI or other funds.
Thank you. I was confused because if I had known it was coming out of reserves, I'm not sure I would have made the motion because we usually don't put our capital. It's hard. We can't do anything now about it, but at the time, we don't usually, as far as I know, put things together that's going to directly come out of reserves if it's a major project like this. So I was just surprised. So
well,
thank you for finding out.
I'm not referring to the document that you have in front of you because that document doesn't actually specifically identify the funding source. What I used was the capital plan, which had a breakdown of the 3 to 5 years of capital projects, and that's where I saw it was coming from reserves at that point. Now, I did see another document that refers to MSI funding, but I didn't find any applications in MSI funding. So based on that.
Thank you.
Councillor Daneka.
So my question is, you're applying to the MSI capital in the federal gas tax with the amounts that have listed here. I'm assuming that's not guaranteed that you're going to get that. Or is it a guarantee that you will get what you've applied for?
There is no reason to believe that you would not get it. It is both programs that they are approving for. Water treatment plants, of course, are something that's a necessity.
Right.
With the red tape reduction, I would hope that they would not give us any hassle about it. So I would think it's almost a done deal. It's just a matter of applying. Honestly, in the time that I've been applying for grants, there's very few that have been denied through MSI unless it really is not for an appropriate.
Right. So if by chance what you're applying for, they don't give you the amount, are we still going ahead with that project?
The projects are actually completed. You're doing it retroactively.
Okay.
Which is also allowed, not preferred, but allowed.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So my question ties into that too. Now with MSI funding and capital, we get a certain amount allocated to it. Are you saying this is a separate fund that we apply for on top of what's allocated to us through MSI operating and MSI capital and gas tax?
Not for these two projects at this time, no. This is MSI capital projects and federal gas tax that are allocated annually that have not been committed to other projects. There are some that have, if you look at the document that's here, there is at the bottom, sorry, of the page 2, I'm referring to this document here. There is one project that's 52nd Street we've put on hold. It has an approval of lift station number 3 has 700,000 MSI already pre-approved, but we've put that one on hold. That's the 4th project from the bottom. It's projects approved by MSI but not started. And then there was the other 52nd Avenue. We had 385 that we've gotten approved by MSI, but the project hasn't gone forward. Now, when I did the analysis, We oversubscribed to MSI, however, they did still approve them all, assuming that we knew that we were coming up under budget, or they don't really do the math. I don't know which. But at the end of the day, those two projects can stay on the roster and at a later date be utilized when the funding is there. Right now, you've oversubscribed. If you want to use it for the water treatment plant and the lagoon, then these ones will have to go on hold. If you think those ones are more important, then we don't have to spend the full amount for the water treatment plant, but you'll have to do it from reserves.
Okay. My other question for you then is what happens in our discussions with the county? We get some of that money. Well, how will that impact what we can use it on?
Technically, I'm not sure how the province would feel about this, but from a perspective of the Big Lakes County, whether we use our reserves or we use our funds from grants, that's irrelevant to them. Their share would come from, they could use grants, but it's still coming from them. So we would then have to reallocate it to another capital project and disclose to the province that we've gotten funding sources from elsewhere and do it that way. I think that's the most honest way of doing it, but at this point in time, you don't have that, right?
Yeah.
So.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Councillor Rose and then Councillor Lowe.
So this is just a reallocation of funds that have already been approved through the gas tax and MSI funding. So this isn't really, you're not applying for new money, are you?
It's money that's been approved for the town of High Prairie, but hasn't been assigned to specific projects.
Except for we're moving it from projects.
That's
different
right.
Projects. So we're just reallocating and we're taking
A
other
portion of
projects.
it, yes, yes. Up to 2020, not 2021 at this point, yes.
So other than this motion and this option, what would we do with the fact that we assumed we had reserves and we're still questioning the reserves? Like, what would have been our other option? Just taking a reserve that we're querying?
Yeah, yeah. I guess the worst case scenario, if you, maybe not worst case, alternative would be that if you don't use MSI money, you're using reserves that may have been allocated for future fire equipment or gas line repair. Those are the two that I'm the most concerned about. We need to look back 5 to 10 years because you've been charging, or supposed to be charging, $1.60 a gigajoule extra for maintenance of gas lines, and all the money that comes in from fires are supposed to be allocated for fire equipment replacement. And that reserve is supposed to be approved by both Big Lakes and the town of High Prairie to spend that money. So those monies should have been set aside. However, in 2014, the council of the day decided to disband all restricted reserves, and so nothing was kept track of. I'm gonna recommend to this council that that wasn't the right avenue to take, because you've made commitments in your ICF that say those two things. Well, the fire one anyway says that you should have been keeping track of that. Your gas lines, I mean, for future replacement, you should have been keeping track of that. So those are small commitments. The Rec Society is another one. You know, there are others that you need to really identify. And then just the replacement of your vehicles, your equipment, is another thing that you need to keep a reality check on. And if you keep spending your reserves just as a pool of money over here, and you don't keep it for the specific things that are intended, you might find yourself in harm in the future. Like, you won't have the monies to do those smaller things because you're spending it on a bigger project.
So I know that you're sort of new to this whole process, and unfortunately you get to dig through all of this and figure things out. This recommendation, is there any opportunity to talk with Dave about it? I know he was looking at it beforehand, right? Like he was sort of our interim.
Yes.
Was this a recommendation that came from him, or does he know anything about this?
Not this particular recommendation, no.
And this has nothing to do, I know we're going to be talking with the auditor soon. Has there been
progress on there?
Yeah.
Yes, there is progress. I'm speaking with Dave tomorrow at 1. I didn't run this by him because he was on vacation. Dave's proposal to both Brian and myself was don't do any future work until you got a grasp of where your reserves and your grants are. I feel confident that I know where the grants are and where the projects that we have done in 2019 and where we're at for the most of them for 2020. So that part has been done, and that's why I'm saying, okay, if we leave the reserves aside and we leave that as cash in our bank, we decide how much we want to restrict and how much we allocate to future projects at another step. It'll still give you that flexibility. You still have, you've got the use of the money from the government. Another sideline thought here is that if you don't spend the money from the government, there is always a chance that the situation financially that they've gotten themselves in, they may claw it back. If you've spent it, it's harder for them to do that. So, not to put fear in your mind, but keeping that in the back of your mind, having it committed and used up for the most part is a good thing at this time.
Yeah, makes sense.
Councillor Long.
Thank you.
Just a clarification, the work that we're applying for the MSI grant for the water treatment facility plant, is this the work that we had done that has created the issue with the county and the money that they clawed back? So it's better to spend the money before they claw it back. We spent money and they clawed it back anyways. So you're saying that we more than likely will get the MSI funding for that. How does that impact us for other MSI grants? Will that say to the government, well, we've given them this much, so really we can't give them any more for that year? Is there a limit, a cap?
MSI capital, MSI operating, and federal gas tax are all based on a formula, based on the number of kilometers you have in your roads, the population, and a base amount. So those are not going to change unless the government changes the formula. So you're not going to get more, you're not going to get less if you spend it or if you don't. It's still allocated to your municipality, and once you've allocated a project that they meets their guidelines, their criterias, they approve it based on that, and then you get to spend the money. Does that answer your question? In regards to the Big Lakes County funding, now, the documentation that I've been able to find is that, and Brian can confirm, that they had originally approved the $400,000 for the project on 52nd Street, which we have not done. There was the assumption that it would go towards the water treatment plant, but that's not been, by the time it was being approached to Big Lakes, they had already pulled the funding, is that correct? So if we wanted them to use it as, we can amend the bylaw, or the motion rather, to say that we want to apply for everything but the $400,000 and hope that Big Lakes spends it, gives it, forks it over. That's your prerogative, and that this way you're still looking for at least that minimum amount for the water treatment plant from Big Lakes. If you're looking for 50% of the water treatment plant funding, well, that's a different story, but, it didn't, isn't the way that I presented it, but it is an option.
Well, they've already had 2 kicks at it and have been unsuccessful. They lack the acumen, I think, to recognize what it is they've done, and or the integrity. I'm not sure which is one, but either way, it's a shame. I hope we get the money. I hope you do it, and it's great. But it's Big Lakes County. What can you do?
Okay, and so just to clarify again, like I think, like I said, if they do come forward with some money with our further discussions, then we could use, we'd have to talk to them about using it for another project, because we have to pay our bills now. So we'd pay it out of our MSI and use this for one of the other projects, maybe the road, 47th Street or something, and we should be able to do that. Okay.
So,
we got Councillor Gilroy and Councillor Long.
from what you understand, I'm just thinking back to what Councillor Long's been talking about. Do you know if there was a time frame, either you, Brian, or Rita, there was a time frame put on their motion for spending the money on the road, so that if we ended up going forward with the road project, their motion would still be intact, that they would give us the $407,000 for that road? So there was no timeline on their motion?
No, my understanding is the fact that the project wasn't completed by the end of 2019, they weren't funding it at that time. And so when the funding was pulled in 2020, because the project hadn't started, they weren't funding it.
So there was a time frame then, that they're in their motion?
No, not in the motion. I could find you the motion, but it didn't it's just the timing of the events, rather.
I guess what I'm looking at here is, if we go forward with this, and this pays off our water treatment work, and the other thing here, if we were then able to start the original agreement that they offered $407,000 in, would that still be valid with their original motion if there's no time frame on it? Because they made a motion to give us that money for this particular project. If there's no time frame on saying you had to have started it by December 31st, 2019, or we take it back, then to me that would suggest it may still be, it's still committed to that project, and they can't take it back unless, once again, we take it away from that project. So have I muddied the waters enough here?
Okay, so the motion that they made the project to was not the water treatment plant, it was 52nd Street, correct? 52nd Avenue.
But if we decided this year to do 52nd Avenue, would they still be obligated by their original motion to give us the $407,000 toward that project?
I think that's something your mediation will decide.
Okay, thank you.
And would they? No. No.
They have no excuse not to keep it then. We'll just keep it right there. Sorry, don't want to get us off track.
My initial comment and thought process from when the paper printed it is, it was an idiot decision to do, and they've created nothing but ill will. And again, I point my hand gesture over to the mayor. I don't see it as being a positive relationship with them. And I'm seeing it, and I believe it, because what they did was irreprehensible. And so when I hear you saying that things are great with the county and us, I call BS. It's not. And somebody's got their head in the sand, and I don't believe it's me. And so county has to figure out what the relationship is they want with us. Is it one of trust and integrity, or is it overbearing bullying? Right now it's overbearing and bullying on their behalf. And you keep saying it's great, but it's not.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to comment that you've got your opinion, I've got mine, you've made yours perfectly clear, so we can now move on to this motion again. Is there any other questions on it?
That was well done.
Yeah.
Nice segue.
Any, no more questions? So we have a motion from Councillor Rose that we use the MSI grant funding to pay off the water treatment plant. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, it's carried. Yeah, and we have one more here. Well, is up, and it's the municipal stimulus grant. Can I get a motion? What's that? Let's do this one, and then we'll do a break. Okay.
So basically, this one is,
Oh, we need a motion, sorry. Yeah,
Apologize.
there's a motion. Okay, Councillor Gilroy.
So we get this going. The council direct administration to apply for MSI stimulus grant funding for 47th Street project for the sum of $304,780 and MSI capital of $438,094 and federal gas tax of $146,665 with the balance to be paid from reserves.
Okay.
so this one
Not so
is,
funny when we gotta spend our own money. right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
well, this one is using futuristic funding and the stimulus funding that the government is making available. Not exactly what we initially thought would happen, but it is what is happening. The federal gas tax is a grant that is up till March 31st of 2024. You're getting approximately about 140,000 a year. The MSI capital was only extended for another 2 years. So March 31st of 2022 is the last grant. So 21-22 is the last grant that's been assigned. Knowing the writing is on the wall with MSI, we don't know what that's going to look like in 2022, 2023. Having said that, the stimulus grant is there specifically for shovel ready. This is something that your administration has been working on with your public works to get this project shovel ready. It's one that we've had issues with last winter because of water breaks. So it's one that's got somewhat of a priority on the minds of your staff. This would be utilizing those funds and a minimal amount of your reserve. But if the grant, the tenders come in lower, then this can be changed, but this is the numbers that the engineers had estimated. And they do tend to estimate on the high ball side, which is easier to make sure your budget, you're within budget. Any questions?
All right, questions? Councillor Gilroy.
Two quick questions. I guess I'm looking at engineer budget is $902,000 under the course and source of funding. Is that the upper amount, and the actual amount we're looking for is a lower amount of $889, or are those two supplements that come together?
I'm not following your.
Well, it says under cost and source of funding, engineer budget is $902,000.
Yes.
And then you've got the MSP funding plus 2021 federal gas tax expected to be this amount, and then so you're saying that the amounts that I guess that we're asking for would be $889,000. So you're suggesting
The difference would be.
Okay, so the difference would be what comes out of our reserves.
Yeah.
Okay. The other question had to do with the fact that I thought if this is for the shovel-ready projects, didn't we already set aside some money for that? That we had to give the engineers ahead of time?
$113,000 for 4 projects that have been being worked on.
Is that included in this equation? That 100?
No.
Okay.
So there's 113,000 of engineering costs.
For 52nd, both projects, that was approved by council, and the Station 3 and 47th Street, that was approved by council. That's the only thing that was approved by council in
Okay, so
It's shovel ready.
the 113 was coming from what pool of money? Do you remember, recall?
Reserves.
Okay. We can
But
reallocate the portion that would have been spent for this 47th Street, right?
back in from that grant, yes.
Yes. So if there was, out of that 113,000, 40,000 of that was this project, then instead of using reserves, we'll use this MSI, MSP, and federal gas tax. Does that make sense? I will verify the amount that has been spent from engineering on these projects, and I will bring a report back to council on that. So there was 4, you said, 47th Street?
52nd Avenue, 2 portions of it, and lift station number 3.
Okay, but 52nd Avenue has a project in itself. Part of it is done and the other part is not?
Part of it isn't done, it was just work that was proceeding, and we postponed that project because we didn't have money.
Yeah.
And that money, from what I understood with Terry, was to be reallocated from the MSI, which you have in that paper. That 340,000 was supposed to go to water treatment plant as well from the MSI. And we didn't have that conversation.
304.
I say that there's
Okay.
some allocated to 52nd Street from MSI already in your,
Yes.
and that was supposed to have been reapplied for the water treatment plant. So we'll have to sit down and talk tomorrow again.
I guess, in a way, that is what I'm doing.
Yeah, that's
You're
what
right.
was supposed to have happened under Terry.
Okay. It unfortunately wasn't applied for, that I could see applications. It wasn't on the website when I pulled it. But by your motion, it will indirectly happen the same way.
Go ahead, Vern.
To put council's mind at ease with 47th Street, the tenders did close today, and we are well under, I can't speak to the number, but we are well under the 902,000. We wouldn't be pulling money from reserve on that project with the tenders that they came. So that might put council's mind at ease a little bit.
Okay, now this one of the questions when it comes to this, the municipal stimulus grant. If I understand it right, is that this is basically giving you your future MSI ahead of time. Is that right, or is this additional dollars? This is additional dollars. Okay, I wasn't sure. So, okay.
They've got a criteria in there that,
Future capital dollars.
Well, we're still going to get our MSI, and we're still going to get the federal gas tax dollars, but this would be additional dollars that we have to apply for, and hopefully we get it, right? That's to get this project done. So, I mean, this is the #1 priority of Public Works to get done. If there's anything we're going to do, this is it. We should be able to get the money from the government to run this. And if we can't, it's only going to be a small amount is what I am seeing. So I think we need to go ahead and get this approved so we can get it. But go ahead, Councillor Gilroy.
So if we approve this and we don't get the money, do we then not do the project? Okay, I just want that guarantee that it's not gonna, we're selling it to,
Absolutely.
okay, so it's only if we get the money that we're gonna,
If we don't got the money, and this is what Rita has been working on, if we don't have the money, I'm not gonna spend money we don't have, right?
And we're already $400,000.
Okay, Councillor Stenhouse.
Councillor Gilroy, I can't support your motion
That's okay.
unless you remove the balances paid from reserves. We have a future meeting in the next couple of days that's gonna give us a better idea of what we're dealing with. And we really don't know what we're dealing with right now, and we keep going into that account. So I'm sorry, I can't support your motion.
That's what council's all about.
what I hear you saying, Councillor Stenhouse, is that you're wanting to table this item?
Yes.
You're,
Well, yeah.
just for the audited financial statement, is that what you're referring to?
I'd like to know what our balance is before we do this, and I understand that we are coming in under budget, I get that, but there's just too many motions where we'll pull it out of reserve, and yet we still don't know where our reserves are sitting. So I won't be supporting this motion.
I don't know that you're gonna necessarily get from the auditors the amount that's restricted and the amount that's unrestricted in your reserves at the audited financial statement time. Hopefully, by the time in 2 weeks when we do meet, I'll have had a bit more time to work on that, and we can look at it from outside the audited financial statement perspective. Because all that is one line on the financial return. So it's not gonna give you what you're looking for. I don't think. You're gonna need to do a background of that number. It's gonna tell you you have money. I'm not saying you don't have money. What I'm saying is you don't know how much should be restricted for other projects or for other departments' functions.
Councillor Rose? Oh, I thought you wanted to go. Okay. Okay, so we have, any other questions, comments before we move ahead?
Did you want me to make an amendment to add that we will not go forward with this project unless we receive the funding? Is that what you're asking me to do?
That's what Public Works has already said. That's what-
Yeah.
No, but I mean, put it in there too. I'm just asking council, because I'll amend it if that's what you want. I mean, I trust Vern, but if that's what you want, I will put it in there. If not, I'll leave it the way it is. Is that what happened with the way it
I
is?
think the motion says right there that it's the MSI stimulus grant.
Yeah, so we
don't
need
have
to.
the MSI stimulus grant.
Okay.
We don't have the-
I'm just
We
want to
can't
clarify
do that.
before we.
Okay, well, let's vote on this and then we'll take a break. So we have a motion that we apply for the stimulus grant to do 47th Street. All of those in favor? Opposed? Okay, that motion is carried. We'll take a break.